Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ulsil, and today I want to give you an update on my No Pan Left Behind project. I have been working on the Rose Quartz palette from Huda Beauty, and the goal was for me to use each shade at least once, which I have. Now typically I choose a customized palette to work on with a few shades picked from different palettes, but this time I did decide to work on this palette as a whole because this is the only palette I have that doesn't have magnetic eyeshadows, so I can't remove them. And so I just thought it would be more practical to use the whole thing as a whole, and also I wanted to be able to compare this palette with a dupe that I have for this palette, which I have already declared, the W7 My Atlantis palette. Now I had to stop using this palette because at the time I had an eye infection, but I still would like to compare this today with the original and do some swatches and everything. But first, let's talk about the Rose Quartz palette. I got this last year at the H&M online store, but I've been saving it until now and I just couldn't wait to try it out. And I had high expectations for this, both because I had seen the popularity online, but also because I had the dupe and the dupe was so good, I just assumed that the original would be even better. So when I tried this, I was so disappointed. So the mattes are all good, and I do have some big favorites there, but the metallics and the duochromes, which I thought was going to be really creamy and pigmented like the dupe that I have was really just not pigmented and just very underwhelming. I do really like some of the looks that I did, but I did struggle a bit to make them work. And if I was going to have a chance to have the eyeshadows show up, I had to use my fingers. I have been looking back on old YouTube videos of people reviewing this, and we just don't seem to have the same experience. So now I'm starting to think that maybe I've received an expired palette once again. It has happened to me before. And it's just very disappointing since I've been wanting this palette for so long and I just couldn't get myself to purchase it because of the very high price, in my opinion. And then when I finally get it, it's that bad. And don't get me wrong, I'm still going to use this, but I'm almost considering repurchasing that dupe that I have from W7. But there are some slight color differences, so we're going to swatch them next to each other and see specifically some of the matte shades that I find that I like more in this palette than in the dupes palette. So let's swatch the shades in both the palettes side by side and compare. So here we have the palettes side by side. We have the original here and the dupe version here. And as you can see, they're very similar, but there are some slight differences. So first we have Course, which is called City in the dupes palette. We have, here's the original and here is the dupe. They have some similarities, but I would say that the dupe version is a little bit warmer and not as metallic and a lot more creamier. I used Quartz 4 times. Then we have Aura, this one, which is called Speculate in the dupes palette. I like both of these. They're extremely similar. I used it 4 times. Then we have Gratitude, which is called Island in the dupes palette, and I used that one 5 times. I can tell that I prefer the matte eyeshadows in the original palette more. They are a little bit more pigmented and a little bit more creamy this far, and these are also extremely similar in tone. Then we have Cosmic Love, which is called Poseidon in the dupes palette. These have very similar tone, but the original one is a lot more pigmented, but also a lot more drier. This is super creamy and so easy to work with, and I prefer that over a really dry eyeshadow. And I only used that one once. Then we have Empowered, which is called Erupt in the Dupes palette. And these are also very similar, but this has more pigment to it. Even though, again, I don't feel like it performs on the eye. I also feel like they're different when I swatched them with my fingers than how they apply on the eyes. So yeah, I only used this one once. So then we have Joy and Myth. Only used this eyeshadow once. Here I feel like the original is a little bit better than the dupe. It's a little bit smoother and looks prettier on the eyes. Then we have Precious, which is called Ocean. Yeah, Ocean in the Dupes palette. This is one of my favorite eyeshadows in the palette. I used this 9 times. These shadows are extremely similar. Very, very similar. I love them both. Then we have Energized right here, which is called Paradise in the Dupes palette. This was like maybe my favorite shade in the Dupes palette. It's so dry in the original one. It looks really nice swatched, but it is not very nice. Well, I can make it work, but it's just more difficult to work with. I used this 7 times. Then we have Love Stone, which is called Sea Fire in the Dupes palette. You can barely see it here because this is that glossy shade, and I don't feel like I have reached those colorful pearls way down in the eyeshadow, so you can't really see any pigment yet. But I actually like this eyeshadow to use almost like a glitter primer because it's a little bit sticky. So I do use that underneath some of the other shades, and I like it for that actually. So I've tried that twice. Then we have Cherished, which is called Empire in the Dupes palette. And I find the dupe to be a little bit more white, and the original shade is a lot more like purpley lavender pink. But I really like the original in this one. And this one I used twice. Then we have Blissful in the original and Immortal in the dupe. I prefer the dupe. I think it's so much easier to work with. I used this eyeshadow only once. I don't mind the shade, but it's just, again, harder to work with. Has a lot of fallout too. Then we have Happiness and Clado in the dupe version. These are the more different, I would say. This is more purpley, this has more pink to it. I used the original twice, and I do really like the original. Then we have Mantra and Trident. These are also extremely similar. I really enjoyed the original. I used it 4 times. Yes, 4 times. Then we have Serenity and Eden. Serenity, the original, from the original palette, is my favorite eyeshadow from the original palette. It is so gorgeous, so beautiful. I remember really liking this one too. But they are slightly different. This has just more purple to it. I used the Serenity 9 times. Then we have Abundance and Play-Doh. Abundance, the original, I used 4 times. And again, they're beautiful. This one's a lot more intense swatched, but again, it doesn't perform as well on the lids. This is just a lot more creamier. Then we have Moon Magic from the original and Utopia. I used this 3 times, and this one from the dupe is gorgeous. It is so pretty. The Moon Magic is also pretty, but again, super hard to work with. Then there's Radiate and Atlas. I used this 7 times, and again, I really enjoy this eyeshadow in both palettes, really. They are extremely similar and I really can't tell the difference. Then we have Self-Love from the original and Lost from the Dupes palette. I only used this once. Same thing as for the other ones. So this is what the eyeshadows look like now. I want to say that my least favorite shades are Empowered and Cosmic Love. And then my favorite shades are Serenity and I want to say Precious, Radiate. Those are some good mattes. And I do also like Quartz and Energized as well, but they're just so much harder to work with. So in conclusion, the matte shades in the original palette are a lot more pigmented and really nice eyeshadows. The metallics has a bunch of fallout, and also the weird thing is the fallout is really hard to remove. I usually don't have a huge problem with that. I just use an eye makeup remover and that's it. But with these eyeshadows, the glitter just tend to stay underneath the eyes. In the Dupes palette, the mattes are still really nice, but you have to build them up a little bit more. They're not as pigmented. And I guess the metallics aren't as pigmented either, but I find that to be easier to work with overall. And they don't have any fallout pretty much, and they're just easier to work with. I think I've said that like 20 times now, but they really are. So I would love to know if you own this eyeshadow palette, what is your experience with this? Do you find them to be dry? Do you experience a lot of fallout compared to other eyeshadow palettes? Yeah. Do you find them to be creamy or dry? So yeah, that's my little review of this eyeshadow palette. I think it's time to show you when I chose the new shades for my new palette that I'm going to be working on for the next few weeks. Spoiler, I did use those eyeshadows to create this eyeshadow look for today. And yeah, so let's move on to that segment. Okay, I'm so excited for this. We're just going to spin the wheel and I'll pick 5 to 7 shades depending on which shades I pick. So we're beginning here with spinning, and we have from Lethal Cosmetics Defiance. I'm just going to write it down between each so I don't forget. Okay, let's try again. This is so exciting. And we have from Natasha Denona Palladian or Palladium. Alright, that's 2 very different shades. I'll show you everything afterwards. Okay, let's spin again. And we have, again from Natasha Denona, the shade called Flutter. Okay, I want to spin again. And we have from Colourpop the Stone Cold Fox palette, Dreamful. Alright, and that's like a plain matte white, so I might do more eyeshadows than anticipated. Let's see. Again from the Colourpop Stone Cold Fox palette, Gneiss. We have 5 eyeshadows now. I want to pick again. Oh, so we have a shade from Sydney Grace called Glistening Stream. That's exciting. I'm kind of hoping to get a matte as well, so let's try one more time. And we have from Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette, we have Fringe. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. We have 7 shades here, but I am a little bit worried about the Lethal Defiance because it really doesn't go with the other ones, but let's just make the palette and I'll show you the eyeshadows. Alright, I think this turned out to be a good palette. So we're starting out with Dreamful, which is a cool semi-matte light white. That was from the Stone Cold Fox palette. And then these three next shades are from the Retro Glam palette from Natasha Denona. Then we have Fringe, which is a warm matte pale green. Then we have Flutter, which is a warm metallic pale peach. And then there's Palladian, which is a warm metallic washed out green. Then we have Glistening Stream from Sydney Grace, and I find that's a little bit difficult to describe, but I would say it's a cool metallic tealy gray. Then from Lethal Cosmetics we have Defiance, which is a metallic warm copper, which is a medium shade warm metallic copper. And lastly we have, again from the Stone Cold Fox palette from Colourpop, this one's called Gneiss, which is a duochrome, a warm duochrome, giving off some red, brown, blue, and teal shades. And this is how the palette turned out. I'm really happy about this. I think we're just going to try to do a look with this and see how it goes. I'm starting out with Fringe. I feel like that's such a light color and I don't have another matte to build up the color or to like deepen the eyeshadow look, so I think I'm going to have a hard time having deeper eyeshadow looks. And this is just one application and you can barely see the shade, so I'm going to have to build this up a lot. Not really sure where to apply or how to use that matte white shade called Dreamful, but I'm just applying it up on the brow bone for this eyeshadow look. I would love to get some suggestions on that. I'll do Palladian all over the lid. I also want to do a little bit of Fringe on the lower lash line. I think that Fringe color is really pretty, but it's also very, very soft and not super pigmented. Then I want to do Glistening Stream from Sydney Grace on the outer part of the lid. Then I want to see if Defiance is going to work on top of that. And just a little bit on the lower lash line. And then I'm going to use my finger to just do a little bit of gneiss. I want to add a little bit more Palladian. And then Flutter in the inner corners. Alright, I finished the makeup look. I ended up doing just a mixture of different lip products and blushes for the blush, and then this is a mix of all my lip products that I'm working on in my project lip service. So yeah, this is how my makeup look turned out. Also, I decided to put the Gold Digger eyeliner from Makeup Store on as well. And I do like the way the eyeshadow look turned out. I do really like the customized palette, although I do think I will find it a little bit difficult to include these two shades into the rest of the palette, but we'll see. I used all of the shades today, so alright, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in my next video. Bye!